Hi there. Welcome back to the New Era YouTube channel. My name is Paul, and I'll be your host today as we talk about interval detection. Interval detectors are essentially automated time-driven processes that allow you to define reports and then define who will be on the distribution of those reports as they are sent out via email or simply stored for later consumption. We're going to spend probably 15, 18 minutes together sometime in a PowerPoint, not really much there, just background information. And then we'll drop into a demonstration of setting up an interval detector using ICEDirect, a web-based interface to the integrity controls environment. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go directly to that background information in PowerPoint. So the first thing to consider is the breadth of inspection possibilities that are offered by image focus. There are standalone inspectors called ICE-BAT, SAE-BAT, and IPL check. And there are cisplex inspectors that we refer to as the background. At the end of the day, they essentially are all doing the same thing. They're checking the parameters and relative values, relational integrity of componentry within each of the individual images. The cisplex inspection takes that a bit further, checking the coupling facility and cross-checking the parms that need to agree and those that cannot agree in order to determine if all the LPARs will be good citizens in the ultimate cisplex, and it builds what we refer to as baselines or packages. Now, whichever of these you choose, you're likely going to hook it to a scheduler of some kind. Now, in the case of ICE-BAT and SAE-BAT, and then even in the case of the background, you could hook it to your job scheduler and it would run on a schedule that you set. You could also hook the background to the image focus internal uh, scheduler if you like that. But IPL check is different. IPL check is run by the IBM Health Checker for ZOS. So you define it in the health checker parms to run at a specific time, and then the health checker kicks it off at that time. However it is that you define these inspectors, realize that the standalone inspectors, when they produce their inspection reports, they are stored in the ICE data space, but as overlays, as I like to call them, because there's only one copy. At the end of the day, when a new inspection report is created, it overlays the prior one for that specific image. It's different from the cisplex inspection perspective because the cisplex inspection process maintains histories, and those histories can be good for forensic and for auditing purposes. So choose your appropriate tool here. So you've got lots of information. One distinction of IPL check is it doesn't save baselines, so only the inspection logs themselves. And you've got all this. Now, what are you going to do with it? Well, setting up an interval monitor will allow you to define reports that will be built at the interval you define, daily, weekly, monthly, or all three, and also allow you to distribute those reports to those with a need to know. In order to do that, we need to set up the monitor to run at an interval and define a recipient list. So this panel that you're looking at will be our target today. As we fire up ICEDirect, we'll navigate to it, and we'll actually run one of the monitors. So I'll go ahead and close this down, and I'll bring up a browser. And I'll go to my history. If I can find it here. Okay, so you can see I'm logging on to ZOSMF. Now this is the recommended best practice way for getting to ICEDirect. You can see the browser's filled in my user ID and password for me. Not a good thing. You should turn autofill off. I'll log in. And I'm now logged in to ZOSMF, which essentially means I've authenticated with ZOS. You can see ICEDirect here. When I click it, we open up another tab. So I can't get directly to ICEDirect because I have to go through another step of authentication. So if I click on my user ID and password again, not a good thing to do, and I click authenticate, I'm going to have to provide an OTP, a one-time pass token, in order to continue my authentication process. And that token was sent to me via email. So if I can find my email system, here's the token, just got delivered. This is generated by the external security manager, RACF, ACF2, or top secret, either one. I'll go ahead and place it in the appropriate spot. Now, there are many different alternatives here for this authentication step. You could involve a third party if you wanted to. The users could be required to register another password that we sometimes refer to as a PIN. That would get married up with some token material to generate a complete token in order for them to continue. A very high level of multi-factor authentication. We click authenticate. And we're now in the ICEDirect environment. This is the welcome page, if you would. And remember, we're still hooked to ZOSMF here, so we can toggle back and forth between the two. We said we were going to use IPL check. That's my check here, so we'll go ahead and click that. I can use a catalog search, a default naming convention, or an alternate naming convention, or set up specific data set names. Remember, these guys are overlaying, so I can set up the names if I know them and put them in a worksheet. And I have them in a worksheet, and I have 4 of them selected. Those are the 4 that will be eligible for interval monitoring. You notice NA here indicating that no blueprint's been created. When I select interval detector, monitor detector, same thing, I get the panel that I showed you earlier. And what I can do now is go figure out the time. It says it's around 10:30, so I'll set this for 10:32, and I'll execute it, update the interval setting. And we get a replay of the setting so we can check the control cards that were added to NSE DET. We can look at the full DET member. These are its control cards. And we always place these little notations when we use an automated process for updating our ParmLab members. So you'll see these frequently. So we'll back up so we can be back at our panel. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to SDSF. And I'm going to see what the TSO time is. Okay, so it should have run. Probably it right here, I hope. Yeah, that's it. So you can see it kicked off. It's running a program called XICHKX. It's looking for what's called a check day. So this is running on a daily basis. It went out and looked at my specific selection. So those 4 data sets that I had named as being the logs that are targeted to be inspected. It went out and did that. It looked up my control cards in the NSE ENS member to see how to send email. And it's only 1 2 in here, but there could be any number of 2s, so you could distribute this to whomever you wanted to. This is what we call a private group. You could also have a public group. And as I go further down, oops, you'll see that it completed its work and it's figured everything out that it needed to do. And now it's sending the notification that the report was created. And so it says, yeah, it sent it, the return code 0, everything is good. So now we should be able to go over to the email. And here that is. And here's the report that just got sent to me. So what this is telling me is that here's the day, date, and time when the report was run. Here is a link to ICEDirect. So if this was something that I was interested in immediately, I could launch a browser from this email and go directly into ICEDirect, assuming I had the appropriate credentials to authenticate. And then I can see a summary of the inspection results themselves. Each of the LPARs is specifically identified. The errors, warnings, and notices that are associated with them are all identified. And I can say, yeah, okay, well, I want to go take a look at that. So if I did want to go take a look at it, I would essentially be back at some point in the browser looking again at IPL check, navigating to interval detectors. And now I want to look at the interval report. And it'll go off and get that report that was just created. And it will produce it. And you can see the time here is 10:32. So that's the time we told it to run. It ran it. It was running XICHKX, everything that's about it. Now, a little bit different from the inspection reports itself. These reports tend to accumulate. So they can accumulate. You can tell it to save 10 of them, so you have a bit of history. But the links to the actual logs will always be, as I mentioned earlier, overlaid so that you will only get a link to the last log that was created. So if I go ahead and click on this link, go off and grab that log, analyze it, and present its findings. Now, this is a test system, so this inadequate data set protection is because of very loose profiling of data sets here. I can click on a particular line. I can say, well, I got these notices. What do they mean? Let's click on one. It'll take us directly in the report to that particular area. And you can see, again, there's some data sets that aren't being profiled correctly. So all 4 of them are linked. So anytime you were to receive a notification that a report had been created via email, you could just click the link there, come directly to ICEDirect, follow the path to the specific detector, get on the intervals detector page, click on report, and then click on the finding to examine it in more detail. So that's the basic story. Again, when we are doing this, we are at this page. Oh, I forgot to show you we can set up interval alerts. We can do that on private groups and public groups. We can add whatever email addresses we want here. You'll notice day is scheduled, so it shows up in green. Week is scheduled, but it shows up in green, but no one is scheduled to receive a weekly report. So I could be added to the weekly distribution just by clicking that. The month isn't set up, so it's shown in red. So opportunity not to make a mistake. There's lots of help here. If you need that. And even more here. Okay, so I think you probably get the general idea now. Thanks for coming out and joining me. There's a lot of other YouTubes about ICEDirect out here. I encourage you to spend some time in them. I think you'll find ICEDirect a very interesting tool to help you better understand the ZOS environment. Okay, that's it for me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.